Insider says Steelers could pivot from Dolphins Tyreek Hill trade for a Raiders WR. Pittsburgh Steelers trade speculation continues to march on, but one insider believes their sights are no longer focused on Miami Dolphins WR Tyreek Hill, but instead on a Las Vegas Raiders pass catcher. On Wednesday, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler and Dan Graziano discussed the Steelers' possible trade interest in wide receivers. Fowler hinted at a continued pursuit of Hill, whereas Graziano believes Pittsburgh could switch gears and instead target Raiders WR Jakobi Meyers, who requested a trade a month ago. I feel the Steelers have pivoted a bit, and if they make an in-season move, it would more likely be to help their struggling defense, Graziano wrote. But since you were asking about receivers, I remember Jakobi Meyers asking for a new contract from the Raiders in the offseason, and then asking to be traded when he didn't get one. If Las Vegas tumbles out of contention and he's not in its long-term plans, he could help someone down the stretch. Should the Raiders' early struggles continue, Meyers would be the perfect trade candidate for Pittsburgh, alleviating the desperate need for talented pass catchers in the Aaron Rodgers-led offense. The Pittsburgh Steelers don't typically chase headlines in the offseason. Their brand has always been about stability, defense, and building from within. But this year feels different. After an uneven start to the season, the black and gold are under mounting pressure to find a spark for their offense. For weeks, speculation swirled around the Steelers being in the mix for a blockbuster deal involving Miami Dolphins star wideout Tyreek Hill. The idea of Mike Tomlin bringing in one of the league's most electric playmakers had fans dreaming big. Pairing Hill's blazing speed with George Pickens' contested catch dominance? That sounded like fireworks. But now, according to an NFL insider, the Steelers may be shifting their sights westward, from South Beach to the desert. Instead of going all in for Tyreek Hill, Pittsburgh could be quietly positioning itself for a deal with the Las Vegas Raiders, targeting one of their top wide receivers. The pivot. The reasoning for Pittsburgh's pivot is layered. First, Hill's situation in Miami remains murky. His contract is one of the most expensive in the league, his off-field controversies keep casting shadows, and the Dolphins' front office has been unpredictable about whether they'd even entertain trade offers. The cost, both in draft capital and financial flexibility, would be astronomical. Contrast that with the Raiders, who are stuck in a familiar cycle, mediocrity and retooling. Their quarterback situation remains unsettled, their offensive identity inconsistent, and their star players increasingly frustrated. It's no secret around the league that the Raiders may eventually need to offload assets, and their receivers could be among the most attractive pieces on the trade market. Pittsburgh is intrigued by the idea of adding Hill, the insider explained, but the smarter money says they'll make a more measured move. They don't like drama. They like fits. And one of those Raiders wideouts might be exactly what Tomlin and Omar Khan are looking for. Who could the target be? The Raiders' most obvious trade chip is Davante Adams. The All-Pro has voiced frustration with the franchise in the past, and though he's still playing at a high level, his window for elite production won't stay open forever. Bringing Adams to Pittsburgh would be a headline move, and one that gives the Steelers a legitimate WR1 to pair with Pickens. But there are other possibilities, too. Jakobi Meyers, a reliable possession receiver, could give Pittsburgh a trustworthy target in critical situations. Hunter Renfrow, though his role in Vegas has diminished, is a classic Tomlin-style grinder who could thrive in a new environment. Each option carries different costs, but all of them come without the baggage and financial hurdles of trading for Tyreek Hill. The Steelers' offense problem. To understand why this matters, you have to look at Pittsburgh's offensive struggles. For years, the Steelers have fielded a defense capable of slugging it out with anyone. TJ Watt wrecks games. Minkah Fitzpatrick controls the back end. The unit as a whole keeps Pittsburgh in playoff contention year after year. But the offense? That's another story. The quarterback carousel post-Ben Roethlisberger has yet to stabilize. The offensive line remains a work in progress. Najee Harris, once hailed as a franchise back, has had an uneven career marked by flashes and frustrations. The one area of genuine optimism has been the wide receiver room. Pickens is blossoming into a star, but defenses know he's the only consistent threat. Double him, frustrate him, and suddenly the Steelers' passing attack looks ordinary. That's why adding a proven veteran, be it Adams, Meyers, or even Renfrow, could shift the balance. Pittsburgh doesn't need to reinvent itself, the insider added. They just need to give their quarterback a couple more answers. One more guy who can move the sticks. One more guy who can win when the defense rolls coverage. Adams versus Hill, the philosophy. The comparison between Hill and Adams is fascinating because it highlights two different team-building philosophies. Hill is chaos incarnate, a vertical threat who stretches defenses to their breaking point, demanding constant safety attention. His presence alone reshapes defensive game plans. But he comes with volatility, financial, emotional, and situational. Adams, on the other hand, is reliability personified. He's not quite as fast as he once was, but his route running remains surgical, his hands are impeccable, and his leadership is respected across the league. If Hill is the fireworks show, Adams is the cornerstone. Which one sounds more like a Pittsburgh Steeler? The locker room factor. Tomlin's teams have always prided themselves on culture. He's managed mercurial stars before, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Martavis Bryant, but those sagas left scars. The organization has become far more cautious about bringing in personalities that could disrupt the locker room. That's another reason the Raiders' WR pivot makes sense. Adams, for all his frustrations, is a consummate professional. Myers is low drama. Renfrow is as blue-collar as they come. Compare that with Hill, whose off-field history and contract headaches would dominate headlines the moment he landed in Pittsburgh. This team doesn't want a soap opera, a former Steelers scout said. They want a grown man who comes in, works hard, and makes plays. That's Adams. That's Myers. That's Renfrow. Hill. He's a Ferrari. Fun to drive, but one wrong move and you're in the ditch. Fan reaction. Steelers Nation, predictably, is torn. Some fans dream of Hill's highlight reel touchdowns in black and gold. They remember Antonio Brown's prime years and see Hill as the closest thing to that level of explosive dominance. Others, however, believe Adams, or even a less flashy name, would be the better fit. Hill is electric, sure, one fan wrote on a forum. But this isn't Madden. We need consistency. Adams plus Pickens plus Freiermuth? That's a real Steelers offense. Social media mock trades abound. Some have Pittsburgh sending a second-round pick and a conditional fourth to Vegas for Adams. Others suggest Myers could be had for a mid-round selection. The debates rage on, fueled by every insider hint and rumor. The road ahead. At 2-2, the Steelers.